Just because one character is in the same row as another one, it doesn't mean that they are as good as each other or better than one another. It just means that they fit the description they're in, okay? So keep that in mind throughout the video, and thanks for watching. I have been playing Genshin since day one and I have most of these characters, so I decided to make a tier list on how good they are in my opinion. If you disagree with any of the ratings I give these characters, please leave a comment down below saying what you think I should have put them on. So without further ado, let's start. As for the travelers, I'm only going to put Lumin there, and I will assume they are Dendro, because Dendro is the best element for the main character. So I will put them on good, but there's better. As for the other elements, they are borderline unplayable. For Jean, I'm going to put her here. She's good with cons, but you don't need constellations to play her. It's not necessary, like some other characters. Lisa, it's borderline unplayable. Same with Amber. Noelle is good with cons only. She's only good C6, so if you want to play Noelle, you better have her C6. It's not hard since she's a 4-star character, but you can get unlucky. As for Barbara, she's playable. I mean, you can put her on some teams, you can make her work, but she's very weak, but she's playable. As for Sucrose, she's actually top tier in certain scenarios. If you do not have Kazuha or Venti, she's very strong, she can carry your team, but mainly because of the artifact set, because she can use it. As for Fischl, she's good with cons. Her C6 gives her a giant boost to the damage she does with Oz. As for Mona, the only thing that is good on Mona is her burst, so I'm going to place her on playable, though her burst is one of the strongest in the game. As for Kaya, yeah, he's playable. You can make him work. Diluc, he's good, but there's better. As for Razor, he's playable also. Actually, I mean, in the beginning of the game he was like good, but now he's just playable. Bennett, he's good in any team, there's no question to that, so I'm going to put him there. As for Ningguang, she's also playable. Beidou, she's good, but there's better. As for Keqing, she's actually pretty good, but I don't know where to place her. There's better characters than Keqing, but she's very good with Dendro, mind you. She's very good with Dendro. Other than that, she's very bad. But I'm going to put her here because she's good, but there's better. As for Xiangling, she's good with cons. She's good with cons. C0, she's good, she can carry you, she can clear the abyss. Without full constellations, she would be good, but there's better. Even though she would be on the top of this list, she wouldn't be anything special. C6, top tier. C6, top tier. But since I have this here, only good with cons, I'm going to place her there. As for this guy, very weak. Borderline unplayable, but you can still make him work on troll teams. This guy, good, same as Xiangling. Very good, but with cons, he becomes a monster. Chi-Chi, she's very weak. She's not unplayable, since she can actually heal a lot, and if you don't care about clear time, she can be helpful to your team. If your team is very weak and you die a lot, she's good, but other than that, she's very weak. Venti, he's top tier in certain scenarios. If there's an abyss floor where every enemy is a small enemy and there's a lot of them, then he's top tier. If the enemies are too big, there's better. So I'm going to put him top tier in certain scenarios. As for Klee, she's borderline unplayable or good, but there's better because she's so clunky. But I'm going to place her here because she actually does a lot of damage. But most players don't play her because she's clunky and you have to cancel your charged attacks. And it's pretty hard to do if you haven't practiced enough. So I'm going to place her there. As for Child, I mean, he's good, but there are better characters. There are better Hydro characters. As for Diana, she can work in some teams, but she's very replaceable, so I'm going to put her there. As for Zhongli, he's good in any team. If you have 3 characters that can clear the abyss, but you're not able to because they are dying, then you just place Zhongli on the 4th slot, and there you go, you win. This girl, borderline unplayable. I mean, her ultimate can be a nuke, but other than that, quite boring and doesn't do anything special. As for Albedo, he's good, but there's better Geo characters. Now with Chiori, he dropped a bit, so I'm going to place him there. For Ganyu, she's good with cons. If you have her C0, you have to pull for her cons. Because if you don't, you won't be able to use your charged shots very well. Because you will either get interrupted or just the enemy will just die before you charge the attack. I'm going to place her there. Xiao. Actually, Xiao is one of the characters I do not have, but I have played with him before in a friend's account. And I mean, cons help him, but there are better characters than Xiao. As for Hu Tao, she's good with cons. No matter what you say to me, she's good with cons. Only. If you have her C0, you have to pull for C1. Otherwise, you will just be crying on the floor because you never have stamina. So I'm going to put her there. Sure, she might kill things quick, but still, if you cannot kill the boss quick enough before your stamina runs out, it's going to be a pain in the ass. So I'm going to place her there. As for Rosaria, she's playable, she can work. Eula is good, but there are better characters. For true damage, she's top tier, mainly because she's basically the only true damage DPS in the game. So I'm going to put her good, but there are better characters. Yanfei is playable. If you have her C4, her shield is actually on par with Zhongli's. So if you have her C4, she's actually a pretty good shielder. Though you have to use your ultimate to activate the shield. So I'm going to put her on playable. As for Kazuha, he's good in any team. There's no question to that. As for Ayaka, she's pretty strong. She's top tier in certain scenarios, but I feel that her constellations help her a lot. I have her C2 and it makes a big difference, big difference. And even then, she can be lacking. So I'm going to put her on only good with cons. As for Yoimiya, she's pretty good. She's actually, people will clown on her, but she's actually a pretty decent character. Of course, there are better characters, but she's very solid. She's very solid. As for Sayu is Other than exploration, she's unplayable. You won't be... You can clear Abyss, I mean, you can clear Abyss with any of these characters, mind you, but pretty hard. Raiden Shogun, you need her cons, but even C0 she can be top tier, so I'm going to put her there. As for Kujosara, she can be playable if you put her together with her waifu, so I'll put her on playable. Kokomi, she's top tier. She can be good in any teams, but I'm a bit biased for Kokomi, so I'm going to put her on top tier. She's the strongest healer in the game, so I'm going to put her there for now. Unplayable, no comment. As for Toma, his shield can work, but he's very weak otherwise. I mean, I think there's one team with Hutao where he works, but other than that, very weak. For this guy, he's top tier in certain scenarios. If you have Ito's team and his weapon and stuff like that, he can be top tier. As for Goro, he's playable because of Ito. Other than that, unplayable. But I'm going to put him here because of Ito. Shenhe is a hard one because she's only good on cryo teams. For cryo teams, she's essential. So I'm going to put her here, not because she herself is a very good character, but because on cryo teams, she is essential. If you are trying to make a team for Ayaka or a team for, I don't know, Risley or something, you need Shenhe. So I'm going to put her top tier in certain scenarios. As for this girl, she's playable if you put her together with Yoimiya. She's a very good character for Yoimiya, but she's not essential. You can play Yoimiya without her. As for Yaimiko, she's good, but there's better. I mean, even Fischl is better than her in most scenarios, so I'm going to place her there. Ayato, he's the same as Child, so I'm going to place him there. Yelan is good in any team, there's no question. Because she works with Dendro, she works with Electro, she's Hydro, the most useful element in the game, and she does a lot of damage. She's easy to build, so I'm going to place her there. Kuki Shinobu, she's actually very good. She's top tier in certain scenarios. She is essential in certain teams. For this guy, he's playable. Heizo can work. Now for this guy, what was his name again? I'm trying to remember. Tainari. As for Tainari, he is good. He's a standard banner character, but he is pretty good. I understand that some of these characters are a lot better than the other ones, but this is not comparing one character to another. It's what I think about them. So now this girl, she's unplayable. As for this guy, he's good, but there's better. As a matter of fact, I'm changing the look. This girl is Candy's nuts, fitting unplayable, I guess. Nilo, she's top tier in certain scenarios. I mean, she's very good. As for this one, is also the same. I mean, if you have her, you don't need anything else. You just need her and an Hydro character. But so that's it. I'm going to put her there. Layla. Layla, she's playable. Her shield is good, but other than that, there's not much to her. As for the Wanderer, he's good, but there are better characters. As for the old lady, she's playable. She can work with Xiao. Alhaitham, he's top tier, and he's Dendro, so he goes there. As for this one, she can work because she's Dendro, so I'm going to put her on good, but there's better, only because she's Dendro. As for Dea, it depends. She's very weak. So I'm going to put her there. Borderline unplayable, but I'm not going to put her in unplayable, because if you try hard enough, she can work, but you have to try very hard. As for Mika, he's borderline unplayable. You can use him on Iola's team, but Iola has a better team other than using him, so if you use him, you're just coping. I'm sorry. As for Baiju, he's a very good healer, and he's Dendro, so I'm going to put him on top tier. As for this guy, he's weak. Kirara, she's playable because her shield is very good, but most people don't have the patience to charge it up. I don't know why, but she's Dendro and she has a pretty big shield, so I'm going to put her on actually very playable. She's almost good if you have all her cons. As for Kole, she's also Dendro, so I'm going to put her on playable just because of that, because the Dendro Traveler does exactly the same thing as Kole does, but better, so I'm going to put her there. Now, as for Line, he can be very good, but there are better characters than him. As for Lynette, I mean, if you wanna run around with her, okay, but she's very weak, so I'm going to put her there. Same as Framine, so I'm going to put him there. As for New Villette alone can solo Abyss, so I'm going to put him on good in any team because he doesn't need a team. There you go. Rizzler is only good with cons. As for Furina, she's very good in any team you put her in. She can work with Geo, she can work with Pyro, she can work with Dendro, she can work with everything. So I'm going to put her there. As for this girl, she's playable as a healer. She can be a very good healer on certain teams, especially Furina teams, so I'm going to put her there. As for Navia, she's top tier. As for Shiori, she can work in some teams. She's playable. She's not the strongest or anything, but she can work, she can be very useful, so I'm going to place her there. As for this one here, she's good, but as far as animal characters go, there are better. As for gaming, he's very weak. Any 4-star characters that attempt to be a DPS will be very weak, unless you are one of the first characters to come out in the game. As for Shiori is very good. In certain scenarios, she does a shitload of damage. She can work on either Geo teams or non-Geo teams. The only thing she needs is a construct on her side. As for this girl, as far as Pyro goes right now, she's top tier, but no matter how you spin it, Pyro is weak. Even though she's very strong, one of the best units in the game, Pyro is weaker now. So I'm going to put her there. And she also doesn't work with every single team because she's Pyro. As for Chlorine, she can be top tier, but I'm not going to put her there because there are better Electro characters as far as Electro goes. As for Siegewin, she's good, but there are better healers than her. She's kinda meh, she's in between playable and good, but there's better. So I'm going to put her there because she's a new unit and we haven't seen much. As for these are the new characters, they haven't come out yet. I mean, this guy has, but I haven't played since this guy came out, so I'm not going to rate him because I do not know what he does. Remember that just because Chlorine is here in the same row as, for example, Tighnari, does not mean that Tighnari is as good as Chlorine or vice versa. It just means that they fit this description, okay? And that's basically it. Tell me down in the comments what you would change on this tier list, if anything, of course. But everyone has its own opinions, so you can tell me down below. As always, have fun. Bye bye.